Hello and welcome. My name is Anthony Beardslee, and today I'm going to be presenting the path-goal theory of leadership. The path-goal theory was mostly pioneered by Dr. Robert J. House. Dr. House received his PhD in 1960 from Ohio State, and since then he has wrote over 130 articles and journals and appears in chapters in numerous books. He is the founder of the Global Leadership and Organizational Behavior Effectiveness Research Program, or otherwise known as GLOBE. His chief interests and research were in personality traits and motives as they relate to effective leadership and organizational performance. Dr. House was inspired by the works of Martin Evans and published his path-goal theory in 1971, and again with other collaborators in 1974 and 96. The path-goal theory illustrates the relationship between the leader, the characteristics of the worker or subordinate, and the characteristics of the task to which they are assigned. The basic idea behind path-goal theory is that the leader must find a way to define goals for the organization, clarify a path for achieving those goals, remove obstacles that lie in the path, and then finally provide support so that the subordinates can appropriately do their jobs. Now, to apply this in the workplace setting, we have three major variables to consider. I mentioned these earlier, but they are the characteristics and style of the leader, the characteristics of the tasks assigned by the leader, and the characteristics of our faithful subordinate here. Now, let's discuss these leadership behaviors. In the path-goal leadership research, they have identified four main behaviors. The first of these is directive. And as the name suggests, this is when a leader is directing, usually in specific repeatable steps. Supportive refers to a leader being attentive to the workers' needs and doing whatever they can to make their job enjoyable or tolerable or just to make it work. Participative is when the leader invites the workers to be involved in the decision-making process. And the achievement-oriented is when the leader will challenge their subordinates to do extraordinary things or to do the best that they possibly can. Now, in describing task characteristics, you can come up with dozens of descriptions, and the book gives us ones like ambiguous, repetitive, unchallenging, complex, and others. I've added a few of my own descriptors for these tasks, comparatively mostly, structured versus non-structured, boring versus exciting, repetitive versus variety, short-term versus long-term, easy versus challenging, and the subordinate characteristics can be described in numerous ways as well. And the book gives us a few key descriptors such as dogmatic, unsatisfied, needing the human touch, and so on. So now what? Now that we've described these three variables, how do they fit together? Well, as I described earlier, we're linking the relationship between these three variables. And as I interpret this theory, it boils down to which variables can we control. Now, ideally, the idea is for the leader to be able to shift leadership gears to match the situation. Now, in terms of the task, you may have some control over the task. For example, you may be able to place the subordinate in a task that is appropriate to their talents or their motivations. Or you may be able to modify the task to make it more tolerable or suitable for them. Now, this isn't always the case. You don't always have the ability to modify the task or put them in the right task that they want. The task is what it is, or their job is what it is. So you don't have a whole lot of control over the task. And certainly we do not have much control over the subordinate. I mean, their characteristics all deal with how they feel, how they are motivated, and so forth. So we have very little control over that. What we have the most control over is the leadership style and characteristics. To shift leadership gears is to help subordinates accomplish their work in a satisfactory manner. For example, if you have an autonomous high achiever whom you've assigned to a long-term challenging project, you probably don't need to monitor their every move. You just hand them the project and they're going to take care of it. If you have workers in the same organization that have structured repetitive tasks that require close supervision, it doesn't mean that you have to supervise a high achiever in the same way. Now, that same high achiever, if they were placed in a repetitive structured task, that probably wouldn't be a good fit for them. Now, on the other hand, if you have someone in a structured task that has a need for direction or that human touch, you may want to shift your gears to being more supportive or participative. That same worker, however, might not be the best fit for a challenging long-term project. Now, I could cite many other examples, but I think you get the idea. The strengths that are noted in Northhouse's book are that the path goal leadership provides a good framework for leader-worker performance relationships. Also, it integrates motivation principles, and it serves as a practical leadership coaching tool. Now, of course, it does have some weaknesses. Noted in the book is that it's complex and difficult to interpret. It only has partial support in the research community, and it does not explain adequately the relationship between leadership behavior and worker motivation. Northouse also mentions that it treats the leadership as a one-way event. In other words, he puts all the responsibility for the success of the task on the leader, and none of that responsibility on the subordinate. My own criticism of this theory, and this is a criticism I have of many theories, is that it assumes the leader's ability to conform to the situation. I'm sure many of us have been in situations where the leader has one style and that's it, and they apply that to everybody. So not everyone has that ability to shift gears. So that concludes my presentation. I hope you're still awake. On the other hand, if you've been having trouble sleeping, I hope I've cured your insomnia. Good night and sleep tight.